Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm bringing a brand new video idea to this channel. It's kind of an experimental stage, so I'm not really sure how I'm gonna format these videos in the future. But today we're gonna be talking about UFC fighters that should be cut from the roster. I'm planning to do this like every end of the month. So usually there's about like 3 or 4 UFC events every month, and by the end or like the last event of the month or by the end of the month, I want to make a video just to like cover all the fighters that quite frankly should not belong in the UFC at this point. Uh I don't really have a strict criteria for like who needs to be cut from the roster or not, but you'll kind of understand why I believe each fighter should be cut off the roster. So without wasting any time, I'm gonna cover every single fighter who's fought in April that should be cut off the roster. All right, so the first fighter I want to cover is from UFC Vegas 105, Josh Emmett versus Leroy Murphy. We have Pedro Falcao over here. He's not UFC level. He's only fought here twice in the promotion. As you can see, he's only fought Victor Hugo and Victor Henry. I'll be honest though, Falcao looked like shit. Falcao looked like shit in both of these fights. He just fails takedowns nonstop, and then just lays and prays, hoping that his opponents don't outstrike him. I I don't know what Falcao does well, even though I've seen both of his fights, and it's kind of clear that he shouldn't belong in the UFC. They're kind of wasting money on him at this point because to keep him on the roster because he's fights like at best once a year. And I'm pretty sure, like, if they're not gonna cut him like right after his loss to Victor Henry, they should cut him like right after his next fight because I don't see Pedro Falcao really winning his next fight. So yeah, it just watch Pedro Falcao fights. Like you'll completely understand where I'm coming from. I know 2 losses in the promotion doesn't sound bad, but trust me, if you watch the way he fights, he is really bad. Right. Moving on. This one's pretty obvious. We have Estela Nunes over here. She's lost 4 fights in a row in the UFC. No, I'm sorry, 5 fights in a row in the UFC. She lost to Victoria Dudikova in the first round via knockout. I think that alone should tell you how bad Estela Nunes really is. And the fact that she's still on the roster is very puzzling. I don't find her like that attractive for the UFC to be like, "Oh, we'll put her on there just to like get some gooners on to watch her fights." Like he's not that attractive to the point where like mass gooners will be gooning to her, and she's just not good. If she is, she would have won any one of these fights. Like all 4 of these, minus Lukbunme, because Lukbunme is pretty good. All 4 of these fights are very winnable. Like, come on now, like fucking Victoria Dudikova, really? Sam Hughes? I don't understand why we're keeping Estela Nunes on the roster at this point. If she hasn't been cut yet, UFC, you should really look into that because like what the fuck does this bitch need to do to get cut off the roster? Like at this point, give her the entire roster. At this point, just give her a fight with John Wiley because he's gonna fight everybody in the unranked section, eventually lose and still not get cut. So yeah, by the end of this month, Estela Nunes should be cut from the UFC. All right, we're gonna move on. We have Daniel Ferunza. Now, I typically avoid uh trying to ask the UFC to cut people that are making their debut, but losing to Reese McKee by first round doctor stoppage knockout, yeah, it's kind of a wrap for you, buddy. And Daniel Ferunza, I don't think he's good. Like Reese McKee, let's be honest, like Reese McKee was on the chopping block before this fight. It was a miracle that Reese McKee was even in this fight in the first place because I was surprised that the UFC didn't cut him a second time. But fair enough, maybe Reese McKee made some improvements. But at the same time, why are you getting finished in the first round by Reese McKee? Anybody in the welterweight division, like has beaten Reese McKee. So it's very puzzling as to why uh Daniel Frunza is still on the roster. I know he's only had one fight and this was his debut. I'm sure you can say that Reese McKee's more experienced. I still don't think Reese McKee's all that amazing. Like you watch the performance, Reese McKee like kind of fumbled a couple of finishes. Fair enough, he looked a lot better than his previous fights, but I'm not even sure if it's because Reese McKee's fighting worse opposition than Daniel Ferrunza or that Reese McKee made improvements. So I'm gonna assume the former because again, Reese McKee has never won a fight in the UFC, and quite frankly, it just shows that Daniel Ferrunza isn't the UFC level in the first place. All right, we're gonna move on to Diana Belbita. Now, Diana Belbita, this is really bad. Lost to Dion Barboza by submission. Lost to Molly McCann by submission in the first round. Lost to Karolina Kowalkiewicz. And before that, I guess she had some wins. Lost to DePaul. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah, she's 15-9, I believe. That 15-10. I'm sorry, that's her record now. She no, she doesn't belong in the UFC. I think it's simple as that. It pains me to say because she's hot. She really is. But unfortunately, she fights like an actual woman, which if you guys don't know like fucking Diana Barboza, she's got some fucking muscles on her and unfortunately for Diana Belbita, she doesn't because she is not blasting gear and she is an actual woman and women shouldn't fight. I'm gonna say it right here. I'm gonna say it right here. Like this sport is not made for most women. Like there are exceptions like Zhang Wei Li and Yan Xiaonan and Verna Janjarova, but most no, most women should not fight. Like she is a former kickboxing champion who can't hurt her opponents. That should tell you everything you should know about a women in combat sports. And unfortunately for Diana Belbita, as much as I do find her attractive, she is not UFC caliber at this point. We're gonna move on to Cortavius Romeus. Now I won't be surprised if the UFC doesn't cut him just yet, but at the same time, I don't believe Cortavius Romeus is UFC caliber. He lost to Gaston Bolaños. Gaston Bolaños didn't have a great track record prior to fighting Cortavius Romeus. And although I do like Chang Li, Cortavius Romeus, I don't. He just doesn't do the right things in the grappling department, where grappling is his specialty. He's getting outworked by the grapplers. He's getting outworked by the strikers that are like what I wouldn't say bottom tier, but like mid tier in the bantamweight division. So it's hard to justify keeping Cortavius Romeus on the roster in 2025. If the UFC doesn't cut him, I'm sure if he loses his next fight, he will be cut from the roster, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't think Cartavius Romeus is UFC caliber, and that's why he should not be on the roster. Moving on, I'm gonna talk about Haley Kawan over here. She lost to Jamie Lynn Horth. I think that's awful. And then she lost to Nora Connolly right after that, who's I get it, she's better than Jamie Lynn Horth. But Kawan offered zero resistance. Like she just kind of held Cornoli in top position before getting reversed. And then Cornoli was the one who submitted her with the rear naked choke, which is Kawan's, I guess, specialty if you want to call it. Yeah, her bread and butter is the grappling, and she can't grapple to win fights. So at this point, I don't understand why we're keeping her on the roster. Her sole purpose on the roster at this point is for fans to goon to her. Like, let's be honest, she is pretty hot, but what? She's 30, what, 2 years old. She has a loving husband. I don't think her career is gonna go that much farther at this point. And unfortunately for Haley Kawan, she should not be fighting in the UFC. Next up, we have Mitch Raposo. I'm sorry. Let me just click on this right here just to check on Mitch Raposo's match history. Yeah, Mitch Raposo. Now, he's only lost two fights, and a loss to Andre Lima and a loss to Sumu Darji isn't that bad, but you gotta watch these fights to realize, like, how the fuck were they even split decisions in the first place? Because Mitch Raposo did not do anything in either of these fights. He literally did not do anything. He just stood there getting leg kicked nonstop by Andre Lima. And then against Sumandarji, not to the extent where Lima was battering Raposo's legs, but every time Raposo got a takedown, he just kind of held it as if it were wrestling. How do you go into the UFC without any sort of jujitsu? Like, not even jujitsu 101. He tried to win a fight purely based off wrestling, and he unfortunately lost because, like, why the fuck are you not doing anything with your top control? Sumadarji, every time they were on the feet, just picked Raposo apart. And I'm gonna be honest, Sumo Darji isn't all that great. I know I said it's not a bad loss to lose to Sumo Darji, but I don't find Sumo Darji all that impressive. I just say that he isn't that bad of a loss because I know there are flyweights worse than Sumo Darji. But at the same time, uh, Mitch Raposo, I think he's worse than the bottom feeders of the flyweight division. And quite frankly, I still don't understand why the judges love Mitch Raposo so much. Like, he fights like shit, and he has zero finishing potential. I don't see any investment into Raposo's career that's gonna pay off. So at this point, we gotta cut him off the roster. All right. Next up, we have Darren Elkins. Now, this is a more of an unfortunate situation. And to be fair to Elkins, he's won two out of his last three fights. But god damn it, Darren Elkins. Like, you look so old in your fight. It's so depressing to watch a Darren Elkins fight. I think Darren Elkins, if he's not gonna retire the UFC, just being a good hurt, just being a good company man for once, cut Darren Elkins off the roster. We don't need to see this guy suffer from more CTE than he already has. And I don't know what you give Darren Elkins if he's not going to retire. Just do not let this man fight. At this point, he's risking permanent brain damage. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if he has CTE already. But yeah, at this point, there's no reason for Darren Elkins to fight. He's just gonna risk uh more traumatic brain damage. And unfortunately for Darren Elkins, I think this is going to be an end for his career after his loss to Julian LaRosa. Please cut him, UFC. If Elkins is not going to retire, please cut him off the roster, UFC. Last but not least, I want to get to last night's card, which was UFC Kansas City, Ian Machado Gary versus Carlos Prates. First off, we have Chelsea Chandler over here. She has a 6-4 record in the UFC somehow. And yeah, I don't see any value in keeping Chelsea Chandler other than for comedic value. Got knocked out by Jocelyn Edwards, lost to Yana Santos, fucking disgrace. She beat Josiane Nunes, and and she lost to Norma Dumont, got her ass beat, became a living meme. How does she have wins in the UFC? I'm so confused. Like, I've never watched the Chelsea Chandler fight and went, wow, she did something very impressive. If anything, Chelsea Chandler is a straight up bum. She- She's known for just running away from opponents every time she gets pressured. He misses weight in half of her fights and still loses. At this point, I don't understand what the whole investment into Chelsea Chandler is. She should have been cut her previous fight, but I think this fight with Jocelyn Edwards kind of solidified where she stacks up in the bantamweight division. And I'm questioning if she even stacks up against the bottom feeders of this division. Therefore, she should be cut off the roster by Tuesday. We also have Polyana Viana It's clear she doesn't take her career seriously. Lost her last three fights all by submission or like ground and pound TKO. She just she's just too busy getting fake tits and posting on her OnlyFans instead of actually training and trying to grapple. Unfortunately for Polyana Viana, there's I just don't see any value in keeping her other than again for gooning purposes. But okay, let's be realistic. Like, how many times are we gonna goon to fucking Polyana Viana or Diana Balbita before we go? Oh, they're really shit. Like, I think it's time that the UFC kind of sets a standard. Like, we get it, you want to promote like pretty fighters, but they can't be complete garbage like Polyana Viana and Diana Balbita. So yeah, at this point, please cut her off the roster, and hopefully we don't get to see her fight anymore because she's just gonna get ragdolled every time, regardless. The game plan's very clear for Polyana Viana. She's lost 8 fights, and most of them were because Viana just chooses to stay on bottom every time she gets taken down, and she can't defend takedowns in the first place. So it's clear what the game plan is against Polyana Viana, and she should not be fighting in the women's strawweight division at this time. All right, moving on. This one kind of pains me. We have Cameron Simon. Listen, like Cameron Simon, he's not bad, but I find it hard if for the UFC to kind of keep this guy. Like, yeah, he kind of got some wins off of complete scrubs like Terrence Mitchell, and I don't know who this guy is. Mana Martin. All right, I don't know who this guy is, but he's lost his last 3 fights against Christian Rodriguez, Peyton Talbot, and Wallmaker. Now these are all good names in hindsight, but again, 3 losses in a row, two by knockout. It's just sad. It really is. I still think Cameron Simon's somewhat talented. Unfortunately, he got too much hype for being Dricus Duplessis' like a partner out of South Africa, and I don't know, like, they coulda given him, like, a fucking Muin Gafurov or something, and, Simon would still be on the roster. Unfortunately, Simon's lost 3 fights in a row, and I find it hard for the UFC to justify keeping him any longer at this point. Alright, moving on, we have fucking John Castaneda. That fight with Chris Gutierrez really pissed me off, and he did something similar in his fight with, Daniel Marcos. Now, he does have some wins, but I'm gonna be serious, like, I don't find the Muin Gafurov win all that impressive, and I definitely don't find a Tango Kung win all that impressive. No offense, man. I just don't think you were UFC caliber either. And every time he's went up against someone like half decent, like Daniel Santos, Daniel Marcos, or Chris Gutierrez, he's gotten his ass beat. Actually, no, not the Chris Gutierrez fight because Chris Gutierrez never beats someone definitively. He's just gonna point spar for a split decision. But that fight was shit against Chris Gutierrez last night. It really made me question why I watch fights live sometimes. And I just don't think Castaneda offers all that much other than being a mid-ranked gatekeeper at best. And it's kind of clear that he's not gonna make a career any like definitive mark on his career. So yeah, at this point, just cut him off the roster. All right, moving on to Jimmy Flick. How is Jimmy Flick still on the roster at this point? I have no idea. Uh, got KO'd by Charles Johnson, got KO'd by Alexander Costa. Malcolm Gordon was piecing Jimmy Flick up before Flick fluked the triangle submission, and Nate Maness was tuning up Jimmy Flick, and then Matt Schnell was ragdolling Jimmy Flick, despite having like no fight IQ. It's clear he's not UFC caliber. I'm genuinely surprised if I will genuinely be surprised if the UFC decides to keep him. And I have no like idea as to how the UFC can justify keeping Jimmy Flick at this point. Like, why would you keep Jimmy Flick? Like seriously, he's like what in his mid-30s. It's clear he's not beating anybody half decent. I know he beat Cody Durden, but I'll be honest, that was kind of a fluke as well. And he's just not UFC caliber. He really isn't. Like, yeah, if he gets you on the ground, he is pretty good. But he's just so open on the feet, and if you are able to reverse him, he just offers nothing off his back. He can't really move, and he can't really just like shrimp out and get back to the feet or reverse position. A lot of the time, like Jimmy Flick, he's not bad of a grappler. It's just that there are a lot of people who can out grapple him. And if that's your specialty, then I don't think you're a UFC caliber because you need to be able to definitively out grapple someone without it being a fluke submission for me to say, oh yeah, you belong in the UFC. I don't think Jimmy Flick has that ability. Therefore, I don't believe Jimmy Flick deserves to be in the UFC all that much longer. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys generally agree with my list of fighters who should be cut from the UFC. And also let me know in the comments down below if you guys want to see this format in the future or if you want me to format this in a different way. Well, other than that, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.